I still remember the smell of my own flesh burning. Not metaphorically, not in some poetic, distant way. I mean, I can still smell it when I close my eyes, that sickening, sweet, bitter stench of skin meeting flame. The way the hairs on my forearm crisped, his face completely calm, like he was lighting incense for evening prayer instead of branding his own daughter. Ni is nothing compared to what awaits you in Jahannam if you continue down this path. Hell. He was promising me hell. But here's what he didn't know, what he couldn't know, because his God had never told him. I had already been there. I had been living in hell my entire life. And the God he was trying to make me fear, I had already met him. And he had scars on his hands too. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand how a girl born into one of the wealthiest families in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, a girl who had everything the door should make you happy, ended up with her father's fingerprints burned into her skin and a death sentence hanging over her head. Let me take you back before the burns, before the miracles, before I knew that demons could bow and devils could flee. Back to when I was just Amira, though that's not my real name, because if I told you my real name, the people hunting me would find me before sunrise.
I was 19 when my world was perfect. At least, that's what everyone told me. My father was, still is, I suppose, one of the most powerful businessmen in Saudi Arabia. Oil money. The kind of wealth that doesn't just open doors, it builds entirely new buildings so you never have to walk through someone else's door. Our palace, and yes, I mean palace, sat behind walls so high you couldn't see the top from the street. Inside those walls, everything was white marble and gold fixtures. The kind of cold, pristine beauty that looks stunning in photographs but feels like a museum when you're living in it. My bedroom was larger than most people's homes. Floor-to-ceiling windows that I wasn't allowed to open because someone might see in, even though we were 3 stories up. A closet full of designer abayas, black, of course, always black, but lined with silk so expensive it whispered when you moved. Everything I touched was beautiful. Everything I touched was cold. I had 3 older brothers who barely looked at me. In our world, sons are princes and daughters are, well, we're investments. Assets to be protected, polished, and eventually traded to the highest bidder for an advantageous marriage alliance. I learned that lesson early. My mother was a ghost. A beautiful, silent ghost who drifted through our palace in her designer clothes, her eyes always downcast, her voice barely above a whisper. She had been a princess from a royal family before she married my father. Now she was just there. Existing. Not living. There's a difference, and if you've ever felt it, you know exactly what I mean. But my father. Allah, my father. People feared him. I mean truly, deeply feared him. When he walked into a room, conversations stopped. Men who commanded armies and controlled billions would drop their eyes when he spoke. He had this presence, this dark, suffocating presence, that made you feel small. Insignificant. Worthless. His eyes were the worst part. Black. Completely black. Not brown, black. Like staring into empty wells. When he looked at you, it felt like he was seeing every sin, every thought, every moment of weakness. And he remembered. He always remembered. I learned to be invisible around him. To move quietly. To speak only when spoken to, and even then, only in the exact words he wanted to hear. I became a master of disappearing while standing right in front of someone. It's a skill many women in my country learn young. It's a survival mechanism. Every day was the same. Wake before dawn for far prayer. The call to prayer would echo through the palace speakers, that haunting, beautiful sound that I've heard 10,000 times. I would perform my ablutions in water that ran ice cold through golden faucets. I would wrap my hijab with mechanical precision. I would kneel on my prayer rug, silk, with silver threads spelling out the 99 names of Allah, and I would pray. And I would feel nothing. Absolutely nothing. If you're watching this and you've grown up in a religious home, any religious home, you might understand this. The going through the motions. The saying of words that have lost all meaning because you've said them a million times before. The desperate hope that maybe today, this prayer will be different. Maybe today you'll feel something. Anything. I never did. After prayer came breakfast. We ate separately, men in one room, women in another. My mother and I would sit at a table laden with food we barely touched. She never looked at me. Never asked how I slept. Never mothered. I don't think she knew how anymore. Whatever light had once been in her eyes had been snuffed out long before I was born. Then came my tutors. I wasn't allowed to go to school, too dangerous, too much exposure to corrupting influences. So teachers came to me. I learned Arabic, English, French, mathematics, science, history, all carefully filtered to remove anything that might make me question. I was being educated to be the perfect wife for whatever prince or oil tycoon my father eventually sold me to. I'm sorry. That's harsh. But it's true. In my world, marriages aren't about love. They're about power. About alliances. About combining wealth and influence. I was 17, beautiful by their standards, from an impeccable family, and completely trained in obedience. I was the perfect product. And I was dying inside. You know what the worst part was? I didn't even know I was dying. I thought this was life. I thought this cold, empty, suffocating existence was all there was. I thought the hollowness in my chest was just normal. That everyone felt this way, and we were all just pretending to be alive while actually being dead inside. I was wrong. The crack in my perfect facade, the first tiny fracture that would eventually shatter my entire world, came on a Tuesday afternoon in March. I remember because it was the day after my 17th birthday. Not that birthdays meant much in our house. My mother had given me a pair of diamond earrings without meeting my eyes. My father had nodded at me across the room. That was it. I was in my room, lying on my bed, staring at the ceiling. The call to prayer for ASR, the afternoon prayer, had just finished echoing through the palace. I was supposed to be praying, but I was just lying there, staring, feeling the weight of my entire life pressing down on my chest like someone had stacked stones on top of me. And for the first time in my life, I asked a question out loud. Is this all there is? My voice sounded strange in the silence. Small. Scared. Is this all there is? I asked again, louder this time, speaking to the gilded ceiling. Speaking to Allah. Speaking to anyone who might be listening. The silence that answered me was deafening. I sat up, my heart pounding in a way that frightened me. Because in that moment, I felt something shift. Something inside my perfectly constructed prison cracked, and through that crack, I felt something I had never felt before. Hunger. Not for food. For more. For something real. For something that made this life worth living. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know where to find it. But for the first time in 17 years, I wanted something beyond survival. Beyond obedience. Beyond this golden cage. I had no idea that this wanting, this dangerous, forbidden hunger would lead me to a God I was taught to hate. To miracles I was told were impossible. To a love that would cost me everything and give me life. I had no idea that in 3 months, I would be standing in front of my father with burn marks on my arms and a Bible hidden under my mattress and a choice that would either kill me or set me free. All I knew in that moment was that something had awakened inside me. And once awake, there was no going back to sleep. The knock on my door came 3 days later. 3 sharp raps. Deliberate. Controlled. The kind of knock that isn't asking permission, it's announcing arrival. I was sitting at my desk, pretending to study French conjugations, but really just staring at the words until they blurred into meaningless shapes. "Enter," I said, my voice automatically dropping into that soft, submissive tone I'd perfected over 17 years. The door opened. My father stood in the doorway. He never came to my room. Never. In our world, men and women occupied separate spheres, and fathers didn't visit their daughters' private spaces. The fact that he was here meant something had shifted. Something was wrong. Or rather, something had been decided. Amira. My name in his mouth always sounded like a verdict. "Come with me. Your mother is waiting in the formal sitting room." My stomach dropped. The formal sitting room. Not the family room. Not the casual space where we sometimes gathered for tea. The formal room, the one with the uncomfortable European furniture my mother had imported from Paris, the one we only used when we had important guests or when serious family business needed to be conducted. I stood on legs that suddenly felt unstable. "Yes, Baba." I followed him through the marble corridors of our palace, my soft slippers making no sound on the cold floors. He walked ahead of me, never beside, always ahead, his white thobe perfectly pressed, his steps measured and precise. Everything about my father was controlled. Calculated. There was no spontaneity in him, no warmth, no crack in the armor where human emotion might leak through. I had spent my entire life trying to earn a smile from him. A word of approval. A touch on the shoulder that said I mattered. I never got it. And somewhere deep down, I had accepted that I never would. We entered the formal sitting room. My mother was already there, perched on the edge of a cream-colored sofa like a bird that might take flight at any moment. Her hands were folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on the Persian rug beneath her feet. She didn't look up when I entered. "Sit," my father commanded. I sat across from my mother. My father remained standing, a power move, though I didn't have the language for it then. I just knew that when he stood and you sat, you were beneath him. Always beneath him. The silence stretched. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. The ornate clock on the mantel ticked loudly, each second feeling like an eternity. Finally, my father spoke. "You are to be married." 4 words. 4 simple words that detonated like a bomb in my chest. I had known this was coming. Of course I had known. Every girl in my world knew that marriage was inevitable, that we were being prepared for it from birth. But knowing something in abstract and hearing it announced as reality are 2 entirely different things. "His name is Sheikh Khalid bin Abdullah al-Rashid," my father continued, his voice as emotionless as if he were reading a business contract. "He is 53 years old. A widower. His first wife died 2 years ago, and his second wife was unable to bear him sons. He has 3 daughters from his first marriage, the eldest of whom is older than you." My mouth went dry. 53. I was 17. He was older than my father. "He is a very powerful man," my father said, and now, for the first time, I heard something in his voice. Not love. Not concern for my happiness. But satisfaction. Pride. His family controls significant oil interests in the eastern province. This union will be advantageous. For both families. Advantageous. That's what I was. A business advantage. I looked at my mother, desperate for her to say something. To protest. To protect me the way mothers are supposed to protect their daughters. But she sat there, silent, her eyes still locked on the floor. Her hands trembled slightly in her lap. She knew. She had always known this was coming. This had been her life too. When? My voice came out as barely a whisper. The engagement will be announced next week, my father said. The wedding will take place in 3 months. This gives you adequate time to prepare. 3 months. 90 days. And then I would belong to a man old enough to be my grandfather. A man who had already buried one wife and discarded another for failing to produce sons. A man who would own me the way my father owned my mother, completely, absolutely, until death or divorce. And in our world, there was no divorce. Not for women. Not really. Something rose up in my throat, bile, rage, terror, I couldn't tell. All I knew was that the walls of the beautiful room were suddenly closing in, the air growing thick and suffocating, and I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't. You are blessed, my father said, and his voice cut through my panic like a knife. Sheikh Khalid could have chosen anyone. He has chosen you. You will bring honor to this family. You will be obedient. You will be grateful. His eyes locked onto mine, and I saw it then. Really saw it for the first time. There was nothing there. No soul. No humanity. Just darkness. Empty, consuming darkness. Do you understand me, Amira? I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. I wanted to tear at the walls and break through the windows and disappear into the streets of Riyadh, where at least I might have a chance to breathe, to choose, to be something other than property being transferred from one owner to another. But I had been trained too well. Yes, Baba, I whispered. I understand. Good. He adjusted his gutra, the traditional white headdress, with precise movements. Your mother will begin preparations tomorrow. You will meet Sheikh Khalid next week, with appropriate supervision, of course. You will be respectful. You will be modest. You will represent this family with dignity. He turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. Without looking back, he said, "This is the will of Allah, Amira. To resist it is to resist him. I trust you understand the consequences of such resistance." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Then he was gone. The moment the door closed, I turned to my mother. "Ami, please. Don't." Her voice was sharp, harder than I'd ever heard it. Finally, she looked at me, and what I saw in her eyes made my blood run cold. Not sympathy. Not love. But resignation. Defeat. And something worse, the dead-eyed acceptance of someone who had stopped fighting so long ago that she'd forgotten fighting was even possible. This is your fate, Amira. As it was mine. As it is for all women. You will learn to endure it. Endure it? My voice cracked. Ami, he's 53 years old. He's already had 2 wives. I'm 17. I haven't even lived yet. I haven't lived? She laughed, and it was the most horrible sound I'd ever heard. Hollow. Bitter. Dead. You think life is something else? Something more than this? You think there's some fairy tale waiting for you out there? She leaned forward, and I could smell the expensive perfume that couldn't quite mask the scent of despair. There isn't. This is life. Marriage. Children if you're lucky enough to bear sons. Obedience. This is all there is. Is this all there is? The question came out before I could stop it. The same question I had asked the ceiling 3 days ago. but now it carried weight. Urgency. Desperation. My mother's face shifted, something flickering across it too fast for me to read. Fear, maybe. Or recognition. Yes, she said finally, standing up. This is all there is. The sooner you accept it, the easier it will be. She walked past me, her silk abaya rustling softly. At the doorway, she paused just as my father had. I was 16 when I married your father, she said quietly, her back to me. I cried every night for a year. Then I stopped crying. You will too. And then she was gone, and I was alone in that beautiful, horrible room with its European furniture and its Persian rugs and its suffocating silence. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes. Hours. Time became meaningless. All I could feel was the weight, the crushing, unbearable weight of my entire future pressing down on me. 3 months. 90 days. And then my life would be over before it had ever really begun. That's when I felt it again. That hunger. That crack in my perfectly constructed prison that had opened 3 days ago. Except now it wasn't just a crack anymore. Now it was a chasm. A gaping void that demanded to be filled with something, anything, other than this fate. I stood up on shaking legs and walked back to my room. I locked the door, one of the few places I was allowed to have privacy. And then I did something I had never done before. I prayed to Allah not with the memorized words of ritual prayers, but with my own words. My own desperate, raw, terrified words. Please, I whispered into the empty room. If you're real. If you're there. If you care at all about me, please. Show me there's more than this. Show me there's a way out. Show me anything. Because I can't do this. I can't marry him. I can't become my mother. I can't live like this. I'd rather die. I meant it. In that moment, I genuinely meant it. Death seemed preferable to the life stretching before me. I waited for an answer. For a sign. For anything. Nothing. Just silence. The same silence that had answered every prayer I'd ever prayed. I lay on my bed as the sun set and the call to Maghrib prayer echoed through the palace. I didn't get up to pray. What was the point? Allah wasn't listening. Or worse, he was listening and didn't care. I had no way of knowing that my desperate prayer had been heard. Just not by the God I was praying to. I had no way of knowing that in the unseen realm, the realm of angels and demons and spiritual warfare I didn't even believe in, something had shifted. That my cry for help had pierced through realms and reached the throne of a God whose name I had been taught to curse. I had no way of knowing that my rescue was already in motion. All I knew was darkness. Despair. And the ticking clock counting down to my wedding day. 90 days. 89. 88. The countdown had begun. The first week after the announcement was a blur of preparations I never asked for. My mother brought in wedding planners, women in expensive abayas with tablets and fabric samples, chattering about colors and flowers and venue options as if we were planning a celebration instead of a funeral. Because that's what it felt like. Like I was planning my own death, only I'd still be breathing when it was over. They held fabrics up to my face. This gold embroidery will look stunning with your complexion, mashallah. They showed me photographs of elaborate henna designs. Traditional? Or would you prefer something more modern? They discussed menu options. Sheikh Khalid prefers lamb prepared in the Nadi style. We must ensure. I sat through it all like a mannequin. Nodding when expected. Murmuring agreement when required. But inside, I was screaming. Inside, I was dying. The worst part was the excitement in their voices. To them, this was a triumph. A 17-year-old girl marrying one of the wealthiest men in Saudi Arabia? This was a fairy tale. This was every mother's dream for her daughter. None of them saw the cage. Or maybe they did, and they just didn't care. Maybe they had been in cages so long that they had forgotten what freedom even looked like. At night, after the wedding planners left and the palace fell into its usual cold silence, I would lock myself in my bathroom, the only place I knew for certain had no cameras, no listening devices, no way for my father's security team to monitor me. I would turn on the shower to mask the sound, sink to the floor, and pray. I prayed like I had never prayed before. Not the ritual prayers I'd been performing since childhood, those continued on autopilot, my body going through the motions while my mind was somewhere else entirely. No, these were different. These were desperate, clawing prayers that came from somewhere deep in my chest, somewhere I didn't even know existed. Allah, I would whisper into the steam, my voice raw. Please. I'm begging you. I've been faithful. I've prayed 5 times a day since I was 6 years old. I've fasted during Ramadan. I've memorized the Quran. I've obeyed every rule. I've done everything right. Please. Don't let this happen. Show me a way out. Please. Nothing. Just the sound of water hitting tile and my own ragged breathing. I tried bargaining. I'll be better. I'll pray more. I'll give to the poor. I'll do anything you ask. Just please, not this. Not him. Anything but this. Silence. I tried appealing to his mercy, the mercy that was supposed to be infinite, according to everything I'd been taught. You are Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. The most merciful, the most compassionate. They say you hear every prayer. That you care about the oppressed. I'm oppressed. Can't you see that? Can't you hear me? Nothing. 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 The silence was worse than any answer could have been. Because at least if he had said no, at least then I would have known he was there. But this emptiness, this void where a God should have been, it was unbearable. 2 weeks after the announcement, I met Sheikh Khalid. The meeting took place in our palace, in the formal majlis where my father conducted business. I was allowed to sit in the same room, a progressive gesture, supposedly, but I had to remain veiled, silent, positioned behind a decorative screen that allowed me to see out but made me barely visible to those on the other side. Like an animal in a zoo. Present but separated. Observed but not truly seen. Sheikh Khalid arrived with an entourage of security guards and advisors. I heard them before I saw them, the heavy footsteps, the murmur of male voices, the rustle of expensive fabric. Then he entered the room, and my heart stopped. He was old. I mean, I had known he was 53, but somehow I had pictured him as, I don't know. Distinguished, maybe. Silver-haired but handsome, like the sheiks you see in carefully staged photographs. He wasn't. He was old in a way that made my skin crawl. Not just old in years, but old in spirit. His skin had the grayish tint of someone whose health was failing. His beard was more gray than black, stained yellow around his mouth from smoking. He moved slowly, stiffly, like his joints pained him. But his eyes. Allah help me, his eyes. They were sharp. Predatory. Alert in a way the rest of his body wasn't. And when he looked toward the screen where I sat, even though he couldn't see me clearly, those eyes scanned the shadows like a hunter tracking prey. I felt my stomach turn over. Ah, my friend. My father stood, embracing Sheikh Khalid with the warmth he never showed his own children. Welcome, welcome. Please, sit. We have much to discuss. They settled into the low couches, servants appearing immediately with Arabic coffee and dates. The conversation flowed around me: oil prices, political alliances, business opportunities. I was barely mentioned. Just a footnote in their negotiations. Finally, Sheikh Khalid turned his attention to the screen. "She is there?" His voice was rough, like sandpaper on stone. "Yes," my father said. "Amira, stand so Sheikh Khalid can see your form." My form. Not me. My form. Like I was a horse being evaluated for purchase. I stood on trembling legs, my abaya hanging loose around me, my niqab covering everything but my eyes. Sheikh Khalid leaned forward, those predatory eyes scanning what little he could see of me. The silence stretched. I could feel his gaze like hands on my body, violating me without ever touching me. "Good," he said finally, leaning back. "Very good. She appears healthy. Strong childbearing hips. This is acceptable." Childbearing hips. He was evaluating my ability to produce his precious sons. I wanted to vomit. "She is virtuous," my father continued, as if selling a product. "Pure. Obedient. Well-educated but not dangerously so. She will make you an excellent wife, inshallah." "Inshallah," Sheikh Khalid repeated. "God willing." They talked for another hour. I stood the entire time, my legs aching, my heart pounding, my mind screaming. They discussed the dowry, an amount of money so obscene it made me dizzy. They discussed the wedding date, the guest list, the honeymoon destination. The honeymoon. I would be alone with this man. This old, predatory stranger would have the right to touch me, to use me, to do whatever he wanted with my body, and it would all be legal. Sanctioned. Blessed by Allah himself, according to our law. When the meeting finally ended, Sheikh Khalid stood to leave. At the doorway, he paused and looked back at the screen. "I look forward to our wedding night, young one," he said, and I swear I could hear the smile in his voice. "I have much to teach you." The door closed behind him. My father turned to the screen. "You may go to your room now." I didn't remember walking there. One moment I was standing behind the screen, and the next I was locked in my bathroom again, the shower running, my body shaking so violently I could barely stand. I pressed my face against the cool tile and prayed. "Allah, please. I'm begging you. Strike me down. Give me cancer. Let me die in a car accident. Anything. I'll accept any death, any suffering, just don't make me marry him. Don't make me belong to him. Please. Please." My voice broke on the last word, dissolving into sobs that tore through my chest like knives. And Allah said nothing. The next day, I tried something different. I performed extra prayers, not just the required 5, but the voluntary ones I usually skipped. I prayed until my knees ached and my back screamed in protest. Nothing. I read the Quran for hours, searching for some verse that might offer comfort, some promise that Allah cared about girls like me, trapped in situations like this. I found verses about obedience. About women being fields for men to plow. About men having authority over women. About the importance of modesty and submission and accepting your ordained fate. But nothing about freedom. Nothing about choice. Nothing about a God who might care that my entire life was being destroyed. I tried fasting, even though it wasn't Ramadan. Maybe deprivation would make me more spiritual, more worthy of an answer. By the 3rd day, I was dizzy and weak, but Allah remained silent. I tried giving tzedakah, charity. I had access to one of my father's bank accounts for personal expenses. I transferred money to every Islamic charity I could find. Orphanages. Mosques. relief organizations. The only relief I felt was watching my father's money disappear. But Allah still didn't answer. For weeks after the announcement, 60 days until the wedding, I was lying on my prayer rug after Isha, the final prayer of the day. The palace was dark and quiet. Everyone had gone to sleep. I lay there, my face pressed against the silk rug, and I stopped praying words. I just cried. Deep, silent sobs that shook my whole body. And in that darkness, in that moment of complete desperation, I felt something crack inside me. Not the same crack as before, the one that had opened when I first asked if there was more to life. This was different. This was the crack where faith breaks. "You're not there, are you?" I whispered into the darkness. "Or you are there, but you don't care. Either way, I'm alone. I've always been alone." The words felt like blasphemy. Like the worst sin I could possibly commit. In my world, doubting Allah was worse than murder. Questioning His will was unforgivable. But I was past caring about sin. What did it matter? I was already in hell. I was drowning, and my God either couldn't hear me or had chosen not to save me. "I've done everything right," I said, my voice growing stronger, anger replacing despair. "Everything. And this is what I get? This is your plan for me? To be sold to a man who looks at me like I'm meat? To spend my life as a broodmare for his sons? This is your mercy?" The silence that answered me felt different this time. Not empty, exactly. But waiting. Like the universe was holding its breath. "If you're real," I said, sitting up, my heart pounding with the audacity of what I was about to say, "if you actually care about me at all, prove it. Show me. Because right now, I think you're either not there, or you're not who they say you are." Nothing happened. No lightning strike. No divine punishment. Just silence. I stood up, folded my prayer rug with mechanical precision, and put it away. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I felt cold. Empty. Like something inside me had died. Maybe it had. Maybe faith, once broken, doesn't come back. I had no way of knowing that this moment, this breaking point, was exactly where I needed to be. That sometimes you have to stop believing in the wrong God before you can find the real one. I had no way of knowing that my question, "If you're real, prove it," had been heard. Not by Allah, who had never been there at all. But by someone else. Someone who had been waiting for me to stop shouting at silence and start listening for a different voice. I climbed into bed that night feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my life. 60 days until the wedding. 60 days until my life ended. I fell asleep praying to no one, hoping for nothing, expecting silence. I had no idea that silence was about to shatter. I had no idea that the answer to my desperate prayer was already on its way. And it would come from the last place I ever expected. The package arrived on a Thursday afternoon. I wasn't expecting anything. I never received mail, my father controlled everything that came into the palace, and I had no friends outside our family circle who might send me gifts. So when one of the household staff knocked on my door and handed me a small box wrapped in plain brown paper, I stared at it like it might explode. "This was left at the service entrance," the maid said, her eyes carefully avoiding mine. "Addressed to you, miss." She left quickly, and I stood there holding this mystery package, my heart beating faster than it should. There was no return address. Just my name, my real name, not the one I'm using now, written in neat English letters. I should have taken it to my father. That was the protocol. Anything unusual, anything unexpected, was to be reported immediately. Our family had enemies. Threats. My father's security team swept the palace daily for bugs, bombs, anything that might compromise our safety. But I didn't take it to him. Maybe it was that hunger, that crack in my soul that kept growing wider. Maybe it was the desperation of someone with 56 days left until her wedding. Or maybe, just maybe, something deeper was guiding my hands as I closed my door, locked it, and sat on my bed with this forbidden package. I tore open the paper with trembling fingers. Inside was a book. Small. Worn. The cover was black leather, cracked with age. And embossed in gold letters on the front was a word that made my blood run cold. Bible. I dropped it like it had burned me. The Bible. The corrupted book of the infidels. The twisted, false scripture that Christians used to blaspheme against Allah. The book I had been taught since childhood was dangerous evil, sent by Shaitan himself to lead believers astray. It lay on my bed like a snake, and I backed away from it, my mind racing. Who had sent this? Why? Was it a test? Had my father planted it to see if I would report it or hide it? Was I being watched right now? I should burn it. That's what I'd been taught. If you ever encounter a Bible, destroy it immediately. Don't touch it. Don't read it. Don't even look at it too closely, because the devil works through those pages. I reached for it, intending to take it to the bathroom and set it on fire in the sink. But my hands wouldn't move. I stood there, frozen, staring at this forbidden object on my white silk comforter. And that hunger, that desperate, clawing need for something more, something real, something beyond the prison of my life, rose up in my chest like a wave. What if? Two dangerous words. Two words that started revolutions and ended lives and changed everything. What if this was the answer I'd been praying for? What if the reason Allah hadn't answered was because He wasn't the one I should have been asking? The thought was so blasphemous, so unthinkable, that I actually gasped out loud. Just thinking it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into an abyss that would either kill me or transform me. I picked up the Bible. My hands shook as I opened it. The pages were thin, almost translucent, covered in English text and marked with tiny annotations in the margins. Someone had read this book. Loved this book. The wear on the pages spoke of countless hours spent studying these words. I flipped through randomly, not knowing what I was looking for. The names were familiar from Islamic teaching: Ibrahim, Musa, Dawood, Isa. Abraham, Moses, David, Jesus. We learned about them as prophets, righteous men who submitted to Allah. But these stories were different. Longer. More detailed. More intimate. I stopped on a page in the middle. The header said Psalms. I didn't know what that meant, but my eyes caught on a verse that someone had underlined in faded pencil. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. My breath caught. I read it again. And again. And again. Close to the brokenhearted. Saves those who are crushed in spirit. That was me. I was brokenhearted. I was crushed in spirit. And Allah had been nowhere, absolutely nowhere, in my suffering. But this was saying that God, not Allah, but this other God, this God of the Christians, was close to people like me. That He saved people like me. Could that be true? I slammed the book shut, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my ribs. This was dangerous. This was haram, forbidden in the worst possible way. If my father found this book in my room, I didn't even want to think about what would happen. I should burn it. Right now. Before someone discovered it. Instead, I hid it. I had a loose floorboard under my bed. I discovered it years ago and used it to hide small treasures, bits of jewelry my mother gave me that my father hadn't approved of, letters I'd written but never sent. I pried up the board, placed the Bible inside, and replaced it carefully. out of sight, but not out of mind. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, acutely aware of that book beneath me. It felt like it was radiating heat, or light, or something I couldn't name. Drawing me. Calling me. At 2 in the morning, when I was certain the entire palace was asleep, I retrieved it. I turned on the small lamp beside my bed, angled it so the light wouldn't show under my door, and opened the Bible again. This time, I started from the beginning. Genesis. The creation story. I knew this story. We had our own version in Islam, Allah creating the heavens and earth in 6 days, creating Adam from clay, creating Hawa from Adam's rib. But reading it here, in these ancient words, it felt different. More poetic. More beautiful. More loving. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Simple words. But they carried weight. Purpose. Intention. I kept reading. Adam and Eve in the garden. The serpent. The fall. And then, this stopped me, God making clothing for them before He sent them out of Eden. Not just punishing them, but caring for them. Covering their shame with His own hands. That wasn't in the Quran. We had the story of the fall, the punishment, the expulsion. But this tender detail, God making clothes for the people who had just betrayed Him, that was new. I read until the sun came up, until I heard the first call to prayer echoing through the palace. I quickly hid the Bible and performed my ablutions, my mind still spinning with the words I'd been reading. During far prayer, I couldn't concentrate. My body went through the familiar motions, but my mind was in that garden, watching God clothe Adam and Eve despite their sin. What kind of God did that? Not Allah. Allah was just absolutely, perfectly just. Merciful, yes, but in Islam, we were taught that Allah's mercy was conditional. You earned it through obedience, through submission, through perfect adherence to the law. You didn't receive mercy after you sinned. You received punishment, and if you were very, very lucky, forgiveness, eventually. But this God in Genesis, He covered their shame before He sent them away. That was different. That was... I didn't have a word for it. The next 3 weeks became a dangerous routine. During the day, I endured wedding preparations, meetings with the planners, discussions about my new life with Sheikh Khalid. I smiled when expected. I nodded when appropriate. I played the role of the obedient daughter perfectly. But at night, I read. I devoured that Bible like a starving person devours bread. I read about Noah, we called him Nah, and the flood, but here the story included details I'd never heard. About God's grief over mankind's wickedness. God grieving. That concept alone was revolutionary. I read about Ibrahim, and his journey of faith. About Moses, Musa, and the Exodus. About David, Dawood, and his songs, those beautiful, raw, honest prayers that sounded nothing like the formal, ritualistic prayers I'd been reciting my entire life. David wrote things like, "How long, Lord? Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me?" He questioned God. Openly. In Scripture. And God didn't strike him down. God called him a man after His own heart. You couldn't question Allah. Questioning was sin. Doubt was apostasy. But here was David, beloved by God, asking God why He felt absent. I had asked that same question. And I'd felt like a blasphemer for asking. But then I reached the Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. The story of Isa, Jesus. And everything I thought I knew shattered. In Islam, we were taught that Isa was a prophet. A good man. A miracle worker. But definitely not the Son of God. That was shirk, the unforgivable sin of associating partners with Allah. And we believed he wasn't crucified, that Allah had substituted someone else at the last minute and taken Isa directly to heaven. But these books told a completely different story. They described Jesus as God in flesh. God who came down. Who walked among us. Who touched lepers and prostitutes and tax collectors, the unclean, the unholy, the rejected. Who loved them. I read about Jesus and the woman caught in adultery. The religious leaders, men like my father, obsessed with law and purity, dragging her out to be stoned for her sin. They brought her to Jesus, testing him. And Jesus said, "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." They all left. Every single one. Because they all knew they were sinners too. Then Jesus looked at the woman, this adulteress, this sinner, this woman who deserved death according to the law, and he said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." I read that passage 5 times, tears streaming down my face. He didn't condemn her. He didn't list her sins. He didn't require her to perform rituals or prayers or pilgrimages to earn forgiveness. He just forgave her. And told her to go and live differently. What kind of God does that? I kept reading. Jesus healing the sick. Feeding the hungry. Touching the untouchable. Breaking religious rules left and right, not because he was a rebel but because he was showing what God actually cared about. People. Human beings. The suffering. The broken. The lost. Me. And then I reached the crucifixion. I had been taught this never happened. That it was a lie invented by Christians to make their prophet into something he wasn't. But as I read these accounts, all 4 of them, telling the same story from different angles, something in my chest broke open. They described Jesus being arrested. Beaten. Mocked. Whipped until his flesh hung in ribbons. Forced to carry a wooden cross through the streets while people spat on him. Nailed to that cross, nails through his hands and feet. Left to die slowly, suffocating, in agony. And the entire time, he didn't call down angels to save him. He didn't curse his killers. He said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Forgive them. The people torturing him. Killing him. He forgave them. Why? Why would anyone endure that? The answer was in the next pages. Jesus died. Was buried. And 3 days later, he rose from the dead. In Islam, we had prophets. Holy men. Teachers. But we didn't have this. We didn't have a God who loved humanity so much that he became one of us, suffered with us, died for us, and then conquered death itself to prove that he was who he claimed to be. We didn't have a God with scars. I sat on my bedroom floor at 3 in the morning, 32 days before my wedding, holding this forbidden book, and I felt something I had never felt in 17 years of Islamic prayers. Presence. Not audibly. Not visibly. But I felt something. Someone. Like the air in my room had changed. Like I wasn't alone anymore. And I heard, not with my ears, but with something deeper, a voice. Gentle. Strong. Certain. I have always been here. Waiting for you to look for me. My breath stopped. My heart stopped. Everything stopped. Who are you? I whispered into the darkness. The presence grew stronger. Warmer. Like being wrapped in something I didn't have a word for. I am. 2 words. The same 2 words God had spoken to Moses at the burning bush when Moses asked his name. I am who I am. The God who simply exists, who needs no qualification, no explanation, no defense. The tears came then. Not sad tears. Not scared tears. But tears of someone who had been dying of thirst and finally found water. Jesus? I whispered, testing the name on my lips. The name I'd been taught to respect but never to worship. Are you real? The presence intensified, and I can't explain this properly, but I felt love. Pure, unconditional, overwhelming love. Not because of anything I'd done. Not because I'd earned it. But just because. Because I was his. Had always been his. Even when I didn't know his name. I am real. And I have heard every prayer. Every cry. Every moment you felt alone, I was there. I have always been there. And I am your way out. I sobbed into my hands, my whole body shaking. But they say you're not God. They say believing in you is the worst sin. They say. What do you say? The question hung in the air. What did I say? Not what my father taught me. Not what the imams preached. Not what Islamic theology declared. What did I, Amira, believe? I looked down at the Bible in my lap. At the story of a God who became human. Who suffered. Who died. Who rose. Who loved. Who saved. I say, my voice shook. I say you're real. I don't understand it all. I don't know how it works. But you're real. And you're who I've been looking for. The presence wrapped around me like arms. Like safety. Like home. Then I am yours. And you are mine. And nothing, no man, no law, no tradition, no devil, can snatch you from my hand. I don't know how long I sat there on the floor, holding that Bible, wrapped in the presence of a God I'd just met but somehow recognized. Like I'd known him all along, somewhere deep in my soul, and I was just remembering. When the sun rose and the call to prayer sounded, I didn't get up to pray. Not to Allah. That felt wrong now. Dishonest. Instead, I prayed to Jesus. Simple words. Clumsy words. Thank you. I don't know what happens now. I don't know how this works. But thank you for being real. For hearing me. For loving me. I felt peace. For the first time in my life, I felt peace. But I had no idea what I'd just started. I had no idea that choosing Jesus in Saudi Arabia wasn't just spiritual rebellion, it was a death sentence. I had no idea that the spiritual realm had just erupted into warfare over my soul. I had no idea that my father, who I thought was just a cruel man, was about to reveal himself as something far worse. All I knew in that moment was that I wasn't alone anymore. And for a girl in a golden cage with 29 days until her forced wedding, that was everything. I started seeing things 3 days after I prayed to Jesus for the first time. Not things, exactly. Shadows. Movements in my peripheral vision that disappeared when I turned to look directly at them. A sense of being watched that made my skin crawl, even when I was alone in my room. At first, I thought it was paranoia. Fear that someone had discovered my secret, that my father's security cameras had somehow captured me reading the forbidden Bible, praying to the forbidden God. I became hypervigilant, jumping at every sound, examining every corner of my room for hidden surveillance. But this felt different. Older. Darker. The atmosphere in the palace changed too. Or maybe I was just noticing it for the first time. There had always been a coldness to our home. I'd attributed it to my father's personality, to the loveless relationships, to the sterile perfection of our wealth. But now I felt something else underneath that coldness. Oppression. That's the only word I have for it. Like the air itself was heavy, pressing down, making it hard to breathe. It was strongest around my father. I had always feared him. But now, when he entered a room, I felt something beyond fear. Something primal. Like every cell in my body was screaming at me to run, to hide, to get away from whatever darkness followed him like a second shadow. His eyes seemed darker. Not just brown-black anymore, but completely black. Void-like. When he looked at me during our formal family dinner on Saturday night, 26 days before the wedding, I felt those eyes penetrate deeper than sight should go. Like he was looking at my soul. And like he knew something had changed. "You seem different, Amira," he said, his voice casual but his eyes locked on mine like a predator sizing up prey. My mother and brothers continued eating, oblivious. Or maybe just well-trained in ignoring anything that might require them to intervene. "I'm fine, Baba," I said, keeping my voice steady, my eyes lowered submissively. "Are you?" He took a sip of his water, never breaking eye contact. "You seem disturbed. Distracted. Is something troubling you about the upcoming wedding?" "Everything," I wanted to scream. "Everything about this wedding troubles me." But I knew better. "No, Baba. I'm honored by Sheikh Khalid's proposal. I'm simply overwhelmed by the preparations." He stared at me for what felt like an eternity. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. But it wasn't a smile that reached his eyes. It was a smile that made my blood turn to ice. "Good," he said softly. "Because it would be very unfortunate if you were having doubts. Very unfortunate indeed." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed with the Bible hidden under my pillow, a small comfort, a talisman against the darkness I felt pressing in from all sides. Around midnight, I heard something. Scratching. Coming from inside my walls. I sat up, my heart pounding. The scratching moved. Along the wall behind my headboard. Across to the wall by my window. Down to the floor. It wasn't rats. We had the best pest control money could buy. And besides, this didn't sound like animals. It sounded deliberate. Intelligent. Like something was circling my room, testing the boundaries. "Jesus," I whispered into the darkness. "If you're real, if what I felt the other night was real, I need you. Please." The scratching stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse. I could feel something in the room with me. Not see it. Not hear it. But feel it. A presence. Cold. Malevolent. Watching. I pulled the Bible out from under my pillow, clutching it to my chest like a shield. My hands shook as I opened it randomly, desperate for any words that might help. The pages fell open to a passage in the Gospel of Mark. Chapter 5. The story of a man possessed by demons, living in the tombs, so violent that no one could bind him. Jesus encounters him, and the demons recognize him immediately. They cry out, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" And Jesus commands them, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." The demons obey. They have no choice. Because Jesus has authority over them. I read that passage 3 times, my fear slowly transforming into something else. Understanding. These shadow things I'd been seeing, this oppression in my home, this darkness around my father, I wasn't imagining it. It was real. Spiritual warfare was real. Demons were real. And if demons were real, then Jesus, who had authority over them, was exactly who he claimed to be. "In the name of Jesus," I whispered, my voice trembling but growing stronger, "leave my room." You have no authority here. Jesus has authority. Leave. I felt resistance. Like the atmosphere itself was fighting against my words. But then, slowly, the presence retreated. The cold lifted. The oppression eased. I lay back down, the Bible still clutched to my chest, and for the first time in days, I slept peacefully. But the war had only just begun. The next morning, Sunday, I woke to my mother knocking on my door. "Amira, your father wants to see you in his study." Now. My stomach dropped. My father's study was where punishment happened. Where disappointed lectures were delivered. Where I had been told, at age 7, that I was worth less than my brothers because I was female. Where I had learned to fear. I dressed quickly in my most modest abaya and hijab, covering every inch of skin except my face. Whatever this was about, I needed to appear as submissive and obedient as possible. The walk to his study felt like walking to an execution. I knocked on the heavy wooden door. "Enter." He was sitting behind his massive desk, his back to the window so his face was shadowed. The morning sun created a halo effect around him that felt obscene. There was nothing angelic about this man. "Sit," he commanded. I sat in the small chair across from his desk. The chair was deliberately smaller, lower than his. Another power play. Everything with my father was about dominance. He steeped his fingers, studying me in silence. The shadows in the room seemed to deepen. That oppressive feeling I'd noticed before intensified, making it hard to breathe. "I have been informed," he said slowly, "that you have been reading. Late at night. By flashlight." My heart stopped. Who had informed him? The maids? Security cameras I didn't know about? "I read many things, Baba," I said carefully. "My tutors give me. Do not lie to me, Amira." His voice was soft, but it cut like a knife. "I know you are reading something you should not be reading. Something forbidden." The air in the room grew colder. I could see my breath now, even though the air conditioning wasn't that strong. This wasn't natural. "I don't know what you mean. Where is it?" He didn't shout. He didn't need to. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire room, echoing off the walls, reverberating in my chest. And his eyes turned completely black. Not just the irises. The whites. Everything. Like staring into two wells of absolute darkness. This wasn't my father. Or rather, it was my father, but something else was looking out through his eyes. "Where is the Bible, Amira?" Terror flooded through me. He knew. Somehow, he knew. "I don't." He stood abruptly, moving faster than a man his age should be able to move, and suddenly he was in front of me, gripping my arm with strength that would leave bruises. His face was inches from mine, and I could smell something on his breath. Something that wasn't food or coffee. Something sulfuric. Like burning. "You think I don't know what you've been doing?" he hissed. "You think I can't feel it? The prayers you've been praying to that false god? That dead carpenter?" How could he know? I had been so careful. Unless this was exactly what the Bible warned about. Spiritual forces. Demons. Evil that could sense when someone turned toward the light. "He's not dead," I whispered, the words coming out before I could stop them. "He rose from the dead. He's alive." My father's hand tightened on my arm, and I gasped in pain. His face contorted into something inhuman. When he spoke, his voice had changed. Layered. Like multiple voices speaking in unison. "We know who he is. The Nazarene. The Son." We know. And you belong to us. This family belongs to us. You will not be taken. I was too terrified to breathe. This was impossible. This was insane. But it was happening. Let go of me, I managed to choke out. You will burn that book, the voices hissed. You will renounce these prayers. You will marry Sheikh Khalid as planned. And you will forget about the Nazarene. Or we will destroy you. No, the word came from somewhere deep inside me. Somewhere that had been born 3 nights ago when I first prayed to Jesus. No. I belong to him now. You can't have me. My father's, the thing wearing my father's face, threw me backward. I hit the wall hard enough to knock the breath from my lungs. He advanced on me, and I could see shadows moving around him now. Not metaphorical shadows. Actual shapes. Dark, writhing forms that seemed to flicker in and out of visibility. You belong to us, the voices screamed. Your grandfather dedicated this family line to the old powers. We have owned you since before you were born. You cannot escape. My grandfather. The man I'd never met. The man my father never spoke about except in reverent whispers. The man who had built our family's fortune through means that were never quite explained. My grandfather dedicated the family to demons? I gasped. Not demons, the voices laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass. Jinn. Ancient spirits. Powers older than your dead carpenter god. We gave your family wealth. Power. Influence. In exchange for allegiance. For worship. For blood. Blood. That's why my father was the way he was. Why my mother was a walking ghost. Why my brothers had the same dead eyes. They were all bound. All owned. But I wasn't. Not anymore. Jesus, I whispered. The effect was immediate. My father, the thing in my father, recoiled like I'd struck him. Don't speak that name. Jesus, I said louder, getting to my feet. Jesus, help me. Jesus, save me. Jesus. Stop. The voices were screaming now, and the shadows around my father intensified, swirling faster. The windows rattled. Books fell from shelves. The very air crackled with dark energy. And then, everything stopped. The door to the study burst open, though no one had touched it. Light, brilliant, impossible light, flooded the room. Not from the sun. This light came from nowhere and everywhere at once. And in that light, I saw him. Jesus. He was standing between me and my father. Tall. Radiant. His robe was white, whiter than anything I'd ever seen, but his hands bore scars. Dark marks where nails had pierced flesh. His face was... I don't have adequate words. Beautiful doesn't cover it. Terrible doesn't cover it. It was the face of absolute love and absolute authority combined. The face of someone who had died and conquered death. The face of God who had become man. And his eyes. When he looked at me, I felt seen. Truly seen. Every secret, every sin, every fear, every hope, he saw all of it. And he loved me anyway. Amira, he said, and his voice was like thunder and whispers combined. Do not be afraid. I fell to my knees, sobbing. Lord. I know, he said gently. I know everything. And you are mine. You have always been mine. Then he turned to face my father. The shadows around my father shrieked, actually shrieked out loud, and tried to flee. But they couldn't. The light held them in place. You have no claim here, Jesus said, his voice filled with authority that made the room shake. This one is bought with my blood, sealed with my spirit. She belongs to me. The voices that had been speaking through my father screamed, she was dedicated. The pact was made. We have rights. Your pact is broken, Jesus declared. She has chosen me. She has called on my name. And I have come. Now. He raised his scarred hand. Bow. What happened next will stay with me until the day I die. The shadows, the jinn, the demons, whatever they were, manifested more fully. I could see them clearly now in the light of Christ's presence. Twisted, grotesque forms. Some humanoid, some animal-like, all wrong. Wrong in ways that made my eyes hurt to look at them. And they bowed. Not willingly. They fought it. I could see them resisting, struggling, raging against the command. But they couldn't help it. Their knees buckled. Their heads lowered. One by one, every dark spirit in that room fell prostrate before Jesus Christ. You have no power here, Jesus declared, his voice shaking the foundations of the building. Leave this child alone. The blood of the Lamb covers her. The seal of the Spirit marks her. And any who touch her will answer to me. The demons shrieked one final time, a sound of pure rage and defeat, and then they were gone. Not destroyed, I understood somehow. Just expelled. Cast out. Forced to retreat. My father collapsed to the floor, unconscious. And Jesus turned back to me. He knelt down, God himself knelt down, to my level. He reached out and took my face in his scarred hands. His touch was gentle, warm, real. You are going to suffer for choosing me, he said softly. Your father will not stop. Sheikh Khalid will not stop. The enemy will not stop trying to drag you back. But Amira, listen to me. He lifted my chin so I was looking directly into his eyes. I am with you always. Even to the end of the age. Even when you cannot see me. Even when you feel alone. I am there. And no weapon formed against you will prosper. Do you believe this? Yes, I sobbed. Yes, I believe. I believe you. I trust you. Then stand up, he said, helping me to my feet. Stand up, daughter of the Most High God. Stand up and be brave. Because I have already won this battle. The war is already over. And you are mine. Forever. He pulled me into an embrace, and I felt love like I'd never felt in my life. Perfect love. Unconditional love. The love of a father who would die for his child. Who had died for his child. I love you, I whispered into his robe. I know, he said. And I love you. More than you could possibly understand. Now go. Hide the Bible somewhere your father cannot find it. And wait. I am preparing your escape. Trust me. I trust you, I said. And then the light faded. The room returned to normal. I was standing alone with my father's unconscious form on the floor. I checked his pulse. He was alive, breathing steadily. But his face looked different. Older. Smaller. Like whatever power had been animating him had left, and now he was just a man. A cruel, broken man, but a man nonetheless. Not the terrifying force he'd been before. I slipped out of the study and ran to my room. My hands shook as I retrieved the Bible from its hiding place under the floorboard. I needed a better hiding spot. Somewhere my father would never look. My eyes fell on my Quran. The ornate, gold-leafed Quran that sat on its special stand in the corner of my room. The one no one was ever allowed to touch without ablutions. The one my father would never defile by searching. I opened it carefully and slipped the Bible inside, nestling it between the Arabic pages. The forbidden book hidden inside the holy book. The truth hidden inside the lie.it felt right. I closed it and replaced it on the stand, then fell to my knees beside my bed. Jesus, I prayed, tears streaming down my face. Thank you. Thank you for being real. Thank you for coming. Thank you for saving me. I don't know what happens next. I don't know how you're going to get me out of this wedding. But I trust you. I'm yours. Whatever the cost. The presence I'd felt before, that warm, safe, loving presence, settled over me like a blanket. And I heard his voice in my spirit, well done, good and faithful servant. Now rest. Tomorrow, we continue the fight. I climbed into bed as the call to dur prayer echoed through the palace. For the first time since I was 6 years old, I didn't get up to pray it. I had already met God. And he wasn't who they said he was. 25 days until the wedding. 25 days until I was supposed to belong to Sheikh Khalid. But I already belonged to someone else. And he had promised to set me free. My father didn't speak to me for 3 days after the encounter in his study. He moved through the palace like a ghost, avoiding eye contact, his face gray and drawn. Whatever had happened when Jesus cast out those demons, those jinn, had broken something in him. He looked diminished. Hollow. Like a puppet with its strings cut. My mother noticed but said nothing. She never did. My brothers were oblivious, consumed with their own lives, their own sins, their own emptiness. But I felt it. The shift in the atmosphere. The battle lines being drawn in the unseen realm. Something was coming. Something big. I spent those 3 days reading the Bible obsessively. I read about spiritual warfare in Ephesians, about the armor of God, about fighting not against flesh and blood but against principalities and powers. I read about Daniel praying for 21 days while angels fought demons in the heavenly realm. I read about Jesus giving his disciples authority over evil spirits. And I prayed. Constantly. Not the ritual prayers of Islam, but real conversations with Jesus. I talked to him like he was right there in the room with me. Because I believed he was. I don't know how to do this, I told him on Tuesday night, 22 days before the wedding. I don't know how to be a Christian in a Muslim home. I don't know how to escape. I don't know. You don't need to know, his voice whispered in my spirit. You just need to trust. And be ready. When I move, you move. Understand? I understand. Good. Because it's about to get worse before it gets better. But remember, I am with you. Always. He wasn't lying about it getting worse. On Wednesday morning, 19 days before the wedding, my father emerged from whatever dark place he'd been hiding in. He called a family meeting in the formal sitting room. My mother, my brothers, and I gathered as commanded, sitting in tense silence as we waited for him to speak. When he entered, I saw immediately that something had changed again. The hollowness was gone. He had been refilled, re-energized. The darkness was back in his eyes, but different now. More calculated. More dangerous. He looked directly at me, and I felt ice run down my spine. There has been a change of plans regarding the wedding, he announced. My heart leaped. Was he calling it off? Had Jesus already? Sheikh Khalid has requested that we move the wedding date forward. He is eager to begin the marriage. The wedding will now take place in 1 week. The room spun. 1 week. Not 19 days. 7 days. The preparations are not complete, my mother started to protest, but my father silenced her with a look. They will be completed. We will work day and night if necessary. Sheikh Khalid has been very generous with the dowry, and we will honor his request. The wedding is in 7 days. He turned his full attention to me, and I saw something in his expression that terrified me more than the demons had. Triumph. Like he'd won some victory I didn't understand yet. Amira, you will spend this week in intensive preparation. You will be moved to the west wing of the palace, where the bridal suites are located. You will be attended day and night by the wedding planners and Sheikh Khalid's female relatives, who will instruct you in your duties. I understood what he was doing. He was isolating me, cutting me off from any privacy, any ability to pray alone, any access to the Bible. He was surrounding me with his allies, with people loyal to Sheikh Khalid, ensuring I had no opportunity to escape or resist. You will have no access to electronics, no unsupervised moments, no contact with anyone outside your preparation team. This is tradition for brides from our family. You will comply. It wasn't a question. Yes, Baba, I heard myself say. That night, I was moved to the West Wing. The bridal suite was beautiful, of course it was. Gold fixtures, silk curtains, a bed that could fit 6 people. A gilded cage is still a cage. 6 women were assigned to me. Older women, relatives of Sheikh Khalid, with hard eyes and harder voices. They spoke to me like I was a child. No, like I was property being prepared for delivery. They told me about my wedding night. In graphic, clinical detail. What would be expected of me? How I should behave? What would please my new husband? I wanted to vomit. But worse than their words was their presence. They never left. Not even when I needed to use the bathroom, one of them would stand outside the door. Not even when I tried to sleep, they took shifts, ensuring at least 2 were awake and watching at all times. I had no privacy. No access to the Bible. No opportunity to pray without being heard. Jesus, I whispered under my breath whenever I could. Help me. Please. I don't know what to do. The first 3 days in the bridal suite were torture. They waxed every inch of my body. They bleached my skin. They dyed my hair. They practiced makeup looks that made me look like a doll. They discussed my body like I wasn't there, my hips, my breasts, my potential for bearing sons. I endured it all in silence. But inside, I was screaming. Inside, I was praying. Jesus, you promised. You said you were preparing my escape. Where is it? Where are you? On the 4th day, 3 days before the wedding, Sheikh Khalid came to visit. The meeting was conducted with all the appropriate Islamic protocols. I was behind a screen, fully veiled. He couldn't see me, and I could barely see him. But I could hear his voice. That rough, predatory voice. I am told you are being prepared well, he said to my father, who sat beside him in the formal majlis. She will be perfect for you, inshallah, my father replied. Good. I have plans for her. The way he said it made my skin crawl. My first wife bore me daughters, worthless creatures. My second wife was barren. But this one, she is young. Strong. She will give me many sons. Many sons, inshallah, my father echoed. And she will be obedient, Sheikh Khalid continued. I have no tolerance for modern women who think they have rights, who think they can speak back, who think they are equal to men. She has been raised properly, yes? She knows her place? She knows her place, my father confirmed. Then he added, in a lower voice, there was a brief moment of rebellion. Some exposure to corrupting influences. But it has been dealt with. She has been reminded of the consequences of disobedience. They were talking about me like I was a dog being sold. Discussing my training. My obedience. My purpose as a breeding machine. Consequences are important, Sheikh Khalid agreed. My first wife forgot her place once. Only once. I made certain she never forgot again. He laughed, a sound that made my blood turn to ice. Allah gives men authority over women for a reason. They must be kept in line. They continued talking about the wedding, about business arrangements, about oil contracts and political alliances. I was barely mentioned again. I was irrelevant to the conversation. Just the commodity being exchanged. When Sheikh Khalid finally left, I heard him say to my father, 3 more days. Then she is mine. And I will enjoy breaking her in. Breaking me in. Like a horse. Like an animal. I went back to the bridal suite where the 6 women waited. They could see I was shaken, but they didn't care. They just continued the preparations, practicing how I should walk, how I should sit, how I should keep my eyes down and my voice soft. That night, I lay in the oversized bed, surrounded by silk and gold and emptiness. The 2 women on watch were dozing in chairs by the door. For the first time in 4 days, I had a moment of relative privacy. Jesus, I whispered into the darkness, tears streaming down my face. Where are you? You said you'd save me. You said you were preparing a way out. The wedding is in 3 days. 3 days. And I'm trapped. I can't get to the Bible. I can't pray properly. I can't escape. They watch me constantly. What am I supposed to do? Silence. But not empty silence. Waiting silence. I'm scared, I admitted. I'm so scared. I don't want to marry him. I don't want him to touch me. I don't want to spend my life as his property. Please. Please. If you're real, if everything you showed me was real, help me. Save me. Because I can't save myself. And then, so quietly I almost missed it, tomorrow. I sat up in bed. Tomorrow what? Tomorrow, I move. And when I move, you must be brave. You must trust me completely. Even when it looks impossible. Even when it looks like you're going to die. Trust me. Can you do that? Yes, I whispered. Yes, I trust you. Then sleep, daughter. Rest. Tomorrow, everything changes. I shouldn't have been able to sleep. But I did, deeply, peacefully, like someone had wrapped me in supernatural peace. And I dreamed. I dreamed of a door opening. Of light flooding through darkness. Of chains breaking and walls crumbling. And of Jesus, standing with his arms outstretched, saying, Come. Walk through the fire. I am with you. The next day, 2 days before the wedding, started like the previous days. The women woke me early for far prayer. We prayed together, or rather, they prayed, and I moved through the motions while talking to Jesus in my head. After prayer, they brought breakfast. Then they began the daily routine of preparations, more beauty treatments, more instructions, more discussions of my body and my duties. But around midday, something shifted. One of the women received a phone call. She spoke in hushed tones, her face growing serious. Then she turned to the others. Sheikh Khalid is coming, she announced. He wants to see her. In person. Now. The other women erupted into chaos. But it's bad luck. He's not supposed to see the bride before the wedding. He insists. He says he has a gift for her. Something she must wear during the ceremony. We have no choice. They scrambled to prepare me, throwing an abaya over my house clothes, adjusting my hijab, ensuring I was modestly covered. Then they led me down to the formal sitting room, the same room where this nightmare had been announced weeks ago. Sheikh Khalid was there. But this time, there was no screen between us. He stood as I entered, his predatory eyes raking over me despite the abaya and hijab covering every inch of my body. "Leave us," he commanded the women. They hesitated. "Sir, it's not appropriate." I said leave. His voice carried authority that brooked no argument. The women filed out, closing the door behind them. I was alone with him. Sheikh Khalid stepped closer, and I forced myself not to back away. He circled me slowly, like a buyer examining merchandise. "You are lovely," he said. "Even more beautiful than I remembered. I have made an excellent choice." I kept my eyes down, my hands folded, playing the role of the obedient bride. But inside, I was praying. "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I have brought you a gift," he continued, pulling a small box from his thobe. "Come here." I moved forward robotically. He opened the box to reveal a necklace, an ornate gold piece with Arabic calligraphy etched into it. "This is very special," he said, taking it out. "Very old. Very powerful. It has been in my family for generations. My first wife wore it. It will remind you of your place, of who you belong to now." He moved behind me to fasten it around my neck, and as soon as the metal touched my skin, I felt it. Darkness. Cold. Oppression. The same feeling I'd experienced around my father's demons. This necklace was cursed. Demonic. Meant to bind me, control me, ensure I couldn't escape whatever spiritual bondage his family was trapped in. "There," he said, his breath hot on my neck as he fastened the clasp. "Perfect. You will wear this during the wedding. You will never take it off. It is my mark on you. Do you understand?" The weight of the necklace felt like a chain. Like hands around my throat, choking me. "Do you understand?" he repeated, his voice hardening. "Yes," I whispered. "Good." He came around to face me again, and his hand shot out, gripping my chin and forcing my face up to look at him. His eyes were black. Completely black. Just like my father's had been. This man wasn't just cruel. He was possessed. Demonized. Whatever jinn had owned my family also owned him. "You belong to me now," he hissed, and I heard layers in his voice. Multiple voices. Just like with my father. Body and soul. "And if you ever try to run, if you ever try to resist, I will find you. I will drag you back. And I will make you wish you had never been born." His grip tightened, his nails digging into my jaw. I could smell sulfur on his breath. "You've been keeping one foot in the world, one foot in the faith, trying to have both. I'm here to tell you, it doesn't work. Jesus said, no one can serve two masters. You have to choose. And I'm begging you, choose him. Fully. Completely. Without reservation. Because he is worth everything. I lost my family. My country. My safety. My old identity. Everything. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. Because knowing Jesus, walking with Jesus, talking with Jesus, living for Jesus, is worth more than everything I lost combined. Maybe you're hurting. Maybe you're trapped in an abusive situation, a forced marriage, a family that controls you. Maybe you feel like there's no way out. Like you're going to die in this prison. Listen to me, Jesus sees you. He knows exactly where you are. He knows your name. He knows your pain. And He's powerful enough to save you. He saved me from a forced marriage to a demon-possessed man. He saved me from a father who tried to kill me. He saved me from a country where leaving Islam means death. If He can do that for me, He can save you too. But you have to call on Him. You have to take the step of faith. You have to say, Jesus, if you're real, prove it. Save me. I'm yours. And then you have to trust Him. Even when the path looks impossible. Even when it looks like you're going to die. You have to trust that He's with you. That He's preparing a way out. That He will keep His promise. If you're ready, if you want what I have, if you want to know Jesus, if you want to be free, pray this prayer with me. Out loud if you can. In your heart if you must. But mean it. Mean every word. Jesus, I don't understand everything. I don't have all the answers. But I believe you're real. I believe you died for my sins. I believe you rose from the dead. I believe you're the Son of God and the only way to the Father. I'm sorry for my sins. I'm sorry for running from you, for believing lies about you, for serving other gods. Forgive me. Wash me clean with your blood. I give you my life. All of it. My past, my present, my future. My family, my reputation, my safety. Everything. I'm yours. Do with me what you want. Save me, Jesus. Set me free. Fill me with your Holy Spirit. Make me a new creation. And help me follow you, no matter the cost. I trust you. I believe you. I choose you. In your name I pray. Amen. If you prayed that prayer, if you meant it, you are saved. Right now. This moment. You are a child of God. The angels in heaven are celebrating over you. And your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Welcome to the family. Now, listen carefully. You need to do several things. First, find other believers. You cannot do this alone. You need community. If you're in a dangerous country, find underground churches. Search online for secret Christian networks. Reach out to missionaries. Find people who can disciple you, teach you, support you. Second, read the Bible. Every day. Start with the Gospel of John. Learn about Jesus. Let His words transform your mind. Third, pray. Talk to Jesus constantly. He's not far away. He's right there with you. Tell Him everything. Your fears, your joys, your questions. He wants relationship with you. Fourth, be wise. If you're in danger, if coming out as a Christian could get you killed, be careful. Jesus doesn't call you to be stupid. He calls you to be shrewd as serpents and innocent as doves. There's a time to speak and a time to be silent. Ask the Holy Spirit for wisdom. Fifth, prepare for persecution. Jesus promised, in this world you will have trouble. But take heart. I have overcome the world. Following Jesus will cost you something. Maybe everything. But He is worth it. And He will sustain you through whatever comes. 3 years ago, I was a Mira. A prisoner in a golden cage. Destined for a life of abuse, slavery, emptiness. I had no hope. No future. No freedom. Today, I am Miriam. A daughter of the Most High God. Free. alive, full of purpose and joy and hope. Not because of anything I did, but because Jesus did everything. He came down from heaven. He became human. He lived the perfect life I couldn't live. He died the death I deserved. He rose from the grave, defeating sin and death and Satan. And he offers salvation, free, unearned, undeserved, to anyone who will receive it. I received it. And it cost me everything and gave me everything. If you're watching this video, I want you to know, Jesus loves you. He sees you. And he's powerful enough to save you, no matter where you are, no matter what you've done, no matter how trapped you feel. Call on his name. Trust his promises. Take the step of faith. And then watch him move heaven and earth to set you free. Because that's what he does. He's in the business of saving people. Of transforming lives. Of turning mourning into dancing and ashes into beauty. He did it for me. He'll do it for you. Don't wait. Tomorrow might be too late. Today is the day of salvation. This moment is your moment. Choose Jesus. Choose freedom. Choose life. I promise you, you will never regret it. Jesus is worth everything. And he's waiting for you. Right now. Come to him. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. John 3 verses 16 to 17. If this testimony touched your heart, please share it. Someone you know needs to hear this story. Someone is trapped and looking for hope. Be the one who points them to Jesus. And if you need help, if you're in danger because of your faith, please reach out. There are organizations, networks, and believers around the world who want to help you. You are not alone. For more testimonies, resources, and ways to support persecuted believers, subscribe my channel. Your support can help save lives and spread the gospel to the darkest places on earth. God bless you. And remember, Jesus is with you. Always. Even to the end of the age.